So here's my take. I wanted to get your reaction. I believe that the next quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, starting quarterback, should be Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush's starting record as a
Rush hour.
Cowboys quarterback is 9-4.
That's
What do you,
right.
what say you? Should we go with Cooper Rush and then get rid of 370, $80 million of Dak's
Well, the
salary?
problem is even if you don't get rid of the player, you don't get rid of the bill. I mean, his money is guaranteed, so you still have to pay the bill. So you might as well have him play. But I wouldn't be surprised to hear. Well, that's not true. I would be surprised to hear if it was a quarterback controversy, but no. Cooper Rush is still a backup quarterback. He's playing very well, though. He's playing very well.
Looks good. He looks good. By the way, what you said is wrong because we have 2 years left and $92 million, I think, of Deshaun Watson's salary. And if he can play, I don't think he plays. I just don't think it's a different situation.
Dude, we have 4 years and $180 million on the hook. We just signed him. I mean, just signed him in this year to 4 years, to 4 more. We have 4 more years of Dak Prescott.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna go out and get. I think a Robert Rose Rush jersey.
Rush hour, yeah, Rush hour.
God, I'm very excited about the Cowboys next year. If our predictions are going to be off the hook, if Cooper Rush is the starting quarterback,
yeah,
there you go.
Just remember, everybody has your story to tell. Tell it well. Untitled Marketing.
And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to This Old Marketing, proudly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. And I'm Robert Rose. Welcome to episode number 460, a special episode for Friday, December 27th, 2024. And with me, as usual, is my pal, my colleague, and a guy who single-handedly got Ohio State win in the playoffs, Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
You know, it's a tough decision. I grew up as an Ohio State fan. Yeah, I went to Penn State.
Penn State looks good too. I mean, of course, my wife went to Penn State. We've been rooting for Penn State all along.
So I'm happy that Penn State made the playoffs, but I honestly don't think they're a top. I hate to say this.
They're not. Well,
nobody's they're a top team.
Nobody's beating Oregon.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I'm very excited about the Ohio State Oregon matchup because I think those, in my opinion, those are the two best teams in the country. That's that's
not sure about that, but yeah, okay.
Although if you talk to anybody who's not affiliated with the Big Ten, they'll say the Big Ten is a joke, which is not the Big Ten anymore. It's the Big.
Sure, 16. It's the medium size, like 9.
It's the medium 9. Do you like the college football playoff?
I do. I am a fan of the way that they've tweaked it and played with it, and I
think 12's the right number.
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah,
I do actually. I like the way that they're pulling in the selections from the different areas. I know SEC fans are annoyed by that whole thing, and but I do. I really like it. I like the way it's organized now.
I would probably, if I was going to do it, which nobody's asked me, I would just take the BCS rankings and that's it. And in that case, if you just looked at the BCS rankings, which is the culmination of all the other rankings, Alabama would have been 12 and would have got in. So, I mean, I'm sure the SEC people out there like saying, "Oh, you could do it that way." And
well, I'm sure
why
they
not?
are.
If you're going out that far, you might as well.
But it doesn't allow for, the NFL does the same thing, right? If you were to just take the top, whatever it is, 10 teams and do it that way, you would be eliminating many of the divisions who are weaker. But, having a 9-8 or a 10-7 team that's a wild card from another division, or as, or is the winner of a division, I think it brings in the underdogs better.
Oh, there you go, bringing logic into it.
Yeah.
I hate when you do that. You know what? Now I'm going to call you. I think I'm going to call you Podcast Jesus.
There you
Since
go.
we are in the holidays, and
There's so
for
many
some
jokes, and I'm
reason,
just not
that
even going
just
to go
makes
there.
me laugh.
There's
Like
there's
when
some
I
good
think of
jokes.
Robert Rose, I now think of Podcast Jesus. You're my
Born in
Podcast
a
Jesus.
manger, a podcast
gotta-
manger with headphones on his head.
It's a Podcast Jesus and a Podcast Manger with Podcast Shepherds and Podcast Magi.
There, Magi. Is it Magi or is it Magi?
I think it depends on what side
Sure.
of the equator you're on.
Right. Well, I get that all the time. I annoy my wife to no end because I say equinox, and she goes, and she just, I mean, from another room. In fact, I'm surprised she didn't yell it when I just said it. She's like, "It's equinox."
Wow.
Yeah,
So
she gets
that's
mad about it.
her.
Yeah, that's the
of
trigger
all
for
the
her.
stupid
Of
things
all
you
the
do.
things.
That's the one that
That's the
grates
one
on
thing.
her.
Yeah, that's the
Oh
one
my
trigger.
God.
Well,
That's
there
amazing.
are many triggers, but that's certainly one of them.
Well, before we get to our special episode, I know you're
Yeah.
going to intro it. I just wanted to say happy holidays, Merry
Aw.
Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah to all of our friends and family of This Old Marketing. It's
Absolutely.
been a wonderful year. We got some great comments from people all year long. We've got a wonderful group of people that for some unknown reason follow us.
I can't. Yeah, I mean, here
Speechless.
it's yeah, it really is. It's gratifying. It's humbling. It's also really lovely. I will tell you, this year has been rough, and this show and the people who listen to it for, as you say, for some unknown reason, have been a big part of why it was even palpable, palatable at all. So, yeah.
It is nice when we love doing. We did our individual episodes, and there's one that didn't work out quite so well, and all those types of things. But it is interesting. We know that people, I think, prefer when we do stupid banter.
Totally. I prefer when we do stupid banter for sure.
I think honestly should be the name of the show. Because
Stupid
as we get older, we talk about marketing less, and we just talk about stupid things.
There we go. Podcast Jesus and stupid banter. That should be
Oh my God.
T-shirts. We need T-shirts. Yeah.
With Beavis and Butthead on them. But
there it is.
The name. Like, an AI generated.
No, the
Beavis and
Muppets, the two
Butthead.
Muppets. Yeah.
Say we'll go to ChatGPT and we'll say, well, if the name of the podcast is Podcast Jesus and Stupid Banter, what would the logo look like?
There it is.
And you know what? It would spit out the Jaguar logo. That would be it.
There it is.
That would be it.
There it is.
That Jaguar logo was done by Anthropic, I think, or maybe Google Gemini.
Probably.
Sure.
Probably.
I'm sure it was some wonderful people behind it. I'm sure it was actually a person.
Yeah.
So anyways, why don't you introduce
we have a really fun show. So the next 2 weeks we're going to do special episodes, as we talked about last week. So we're not going to cover the news, but we're going to cover this week is going to be our special episodes on our biggest lessons learned in 2024. Some of them will be more philosophical. Some of them might be marketing. Some of them might be, why we're still doing this podcast. There were all kinds of lessons that we learned from 2024, and it might be, just a year in review, really, of the lessons that each of us learned in our various professional and personal lives. And so hopefully fun and entertaining and helpful for you. And then next week, we'll do our annual prediction show where we'll review
a good one.
Yeah, we'll review our predictions from this last year and give ourselves a grade. And then we'll also obviously make predictions for 2025. And spoiler alert, we didn't do that great on the predictions this year.
Why are we so bad?
We're not. Well, you know what it is? We're not bad. We're average. We bat average. I mean, we'll see with the grades we give ourselves next week, but they weren't all wrong. But the ones that were wrong were really wrong.
I have so many comments to say about that. We're not bad, we're average comment, but I'm just
Yeah,
going to
that's
leave it
right.
go. And we're just
That's
going to
yeah.
go on with that. So, okay, very good. So how do we want to play this? Are you
So I
going
think
first?
we'll trade back and forth like we normally do, and
Okay.
we'll go through a few lessons, and then along the way we'll pay a couple of bills, and then we'll
Okay.
get the hell out of here.
All
So
right.
you start. You
want
start.
me
What's
to
your
start? Okay.
what's your first lesson learned this year
My
from
first
2024?
lesson, my first lesson learned, as you know, and some people would say that this was the year of the podcast, especially with what happened with the election and how theoretically important they were. They actually weren't that important, but we thought that they were important.
Yeah.
But my take is, and my lesson learned is that podcasts are almost impossible to succeed. New podcasts are so difficult to get an audience following. And I'll lead it into that actually will go into my predictions next week, but I'm not going to give that away. And so what I've learned is that either don't do a podcast, or two, that's probably good. That we'll do two. That would make more sense. Two is you should spend about 20% of your time on the content of your podcast and 80% figuring out how you're going to get it distributed
Yeah.
to a number of people.
If you're new,
If you're new, because it's going to be, there's so much competition. There are so many new podcasts that are starting up every day. And now that it's really gone super mainstream, everybody and their brother and sister and whoever is starting a podcast, they don't realize how hard it is to get not keep an audience. That's a whole different thing. It's just to get anybody to start listening to it.
Yeah.
So that I've heard that more and more from newer podcasts that are just like, how long does it take? And I'm like, you have to have a really good marketing and distribution plan to get anything going.
Sure. It's like launching any new show, whether that's in Hollywood or launching a new film or launching anything these days in the media, whether it's a new magazine, a new movie, a new TV show, a new podcast, the democratization of how easy it is now to produce the content, regardless of how good it is one thing. But the hard thing is getting, piercing the noise, just getting distribution and marketing and promotion right, where you actually attract an audience, which in the early days when there wasn't much competition was a lot easier. It was a lot easier, right? Same is true with your blog too, right?
That's true. But the difference with the podcast is you don't get any help for the most part from an algorithm.
Help. Yeah.
And if you even what's Adam Mosseri's last, is that right?
Mosseri,
the CEO of Instagram.
Yeah.
When he came out a few months ago and said, we're going to give more and more credence to newer creators. We want them to be successful. So if you're new, you're going to get a shot, and you get a shot on TikTok as well. So on some of these platforms, if you just put it out there, you could get into that algorithm and you could gain an audience. So that is a possibility. Podcast, no way. There's no algorithm that's going to help you get an audience. So I think that's where the difference is.
And it's interesting because that seems to be the path these days, right? Is for so many of these creators, the challenge becomes go viral on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or, your favorite social media platform of choice, get enough attention, and then transform that into some kind of show. I mean, that's, something we didn't talk about on any of the news shows over the last month and a half, and we don't have to get into it now, but the Haktua girl, right? She, you talk about the sort of the new ladder to stardom, right? She went viral on a TikTok video. It wasn't even her video. She went viral on the TikTok video.
She got her 15 minutes.
Got her 15 minutes, made the most of it on TikTok and went viral again, then launched a crypto coin, and then, to whoever you believe, did a rug pull and basically faked everybody out. But now has a show, right? And she's got a show, and it's, we'll see what happens with it. But that seems to be the pattern these days is you make a moment, you find your moment, and then now you have enough attention, you've pierced the noise. Now you got to do something with it.
Absolutely. Well, you're absolutely right. So whoever was managing her maybe it was her, but whoever put that together did a really good job. So,
I
okay,
think
we're
it
going to
was-
get you all these interviews,
Yeah.
line them up, and then we're going to build assets for you to promote as you, and it worked fairly well. You're right. Crypto thing aside, whatever happened there. But
Isn't
yeah,
it
I mean,
the
that could work out. She could be a staying power because of building those assets around her.
wasn't it the Paul brothers that backed her?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know who the program is. What I was going to say about the, getting found in a podcast. So, Michael Lewis, the author of The Big Short, Blindside, and the other ones, launched a new podcast on sports gambling called, I think it's called Against the Odds. But to promote that, so here's Michael Lewis, not a podcaster, wants to do a podcast series, is part of Pushkin, which is Malcolm Gladwell's network, and goes on with Malcolm, does an interview, and then the first episode is actually on Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History podcast.
Right.
So I mean, and Michael Lewis is doing a lot of interviews on Prof G, as you know, a lot of other things going on. But that kind of thing is really, really important to think about if you're going to do any show. So we always say email for email, podcast for podcast, video for video. If you want to promote your thing, this is a podcast, get on other podcasts. You need to prepare way, way early to give yourself a good start in this thing. So
yeah.
Anyways,
Good.
all right.
Good advice. That's good
stuff.
advice. Good
That's
lesson.
my lesson learned. That's my number one lesson learned. What do you got?
There you go.
What's
Well,
your-
mine are not in any particular order.
Well, no, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
was my first one. It's
well,
not
maybe
my
actually
number
my
one.
my third one. When we get to my third one, it might be the biggest lesson I learned this year. But this is
There
my
you go,
first,
podcast Jesus.
my first. So many jokes.
Mhm.
All right. So my first lesson learned is about chasing trends, and it was really it's one that I've learned over the last 2 years, which is it can be very, very tempting to swing hard for hot, bright, shiny objects. Here's what I mean by that. There was a big trend in 2022, 23 around the idea of, we called it Web 3.0, and there was going to be NFTs, and it was going to be the virtual universe, and marketing was going to get fundamentally changed, and all of these kinds of things. And within moments, you saw people, and including people that you and I know very well, sort of instantly turn into experts around crypto, NFTs, and virtual universes, and instantly started up new companies that basically chased that trend and tried to capitalize on it, and then basically fell back into the into the swamp. Right. Same thing has happened. I've watched it happen in my world of consulting and agency and services with around generative AI over the last year. And it's so very tempting. And this is, if I navigated one thing successfully over the last 18 months, and there's a lot that I didn't, and we'll get into that. But if there's one thing I navigated successfully, it was to not give into the temptation to chase one of those trends and completely sort of go, head over heels into one of those things and try and, really just become that thing, become that hot, bright, shiny object. And I've just watched a lot of companies, new companies, that are now all over my LinkedIn feed or all over my Facebook feed. And again, we know some of these people who are now, 18 months into this, they're AI experts, right? They're AI, and they're no more experts than anybody is, but they have sort of swung and jumped, neck deep into this thing, and basically now consider themselves an expert because they're chasing this trend, this bright, shiny object. And instead, where I at least can observe, and again, this isn't necessarily me, but this is where I can observe, and the lesson that is really learned is those that incorporate the trends into whatever evolution you're already making, right? As whether it's on consulting, whether it's an agency side, whether it's a content creation side, whether it's your story that you're telling, that sort of incorporate and figure out how the new thing changes or evolves the thing that you're already doing, that you're, the path that you're already on. To me, that's the lesson to learn there, because that seems to be the more successful way to actually move forward, is to say, how, instead of trying to chase this new thing and chase it down and do all of that, it's like, how do I incorporate this into the thing that I'm already an expert in, or the thing that I'm already passionate about, or the thing that I'm already creating on, and how does it change that thing? Because that feels like the right way to incorporate that trend or that new bright shiny object into my life, into my job, into my opportunity, rather than trying to sort of say, this is the new shiniest thing, I got to go chase that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, when you were first describing your opening, I thought about, when we launched the Tilt in 2021. I mean, first of all, I launched the Tilt specifically because I thought, oh my God, here's a technology that's now available where a content creator can own their own platform. They don't have a third-party entity. We can do it with tokens, by tokenization. The challenge with that was the fact that in a lot of cases, the technology wasn't quite there. It was way too cumbersome and difficult for that to make sense for a lot of creators, including myself. And it didn't work out very well. So, okay, now we're seeing the resurgence again since November of 22, which is the launch of ChatGPT. And now you see everybody getting behind AI. I would say, I agree with you. I would want people to be, I'm not saying that a lot of the people that we're talking about were wrong. But a lot of, there's only a few of those people that'll make that transition.
Agreed. And
But some will.
I think the Tilt is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, because what you did with the Tilt was you incorporated the idea of NFTs, crypto, blockchain into something that you were already doing, which was content creators owning, which was itself an evolution, by the way, out of content marketing, right?
Yeah.
So the thing was, you were saying, look, I'm looking at content marketing, not from the brand side, but from the creator side. And so how do small independent entrepreneurs become the
financially
quintessential
sustainable?
Correct, right? So our book Killing Marketing was all about how to become a self-sustaining marketer, right, as a brand. And you took that idea and incorporated it into the content creator model, right? Where it's like, no, you're starting as a content creator, you're going to immediately monetize your marketing. That's the whole point of being a content creator, is you're monetizing your marketing. And you took that idea, and then as crypto and NFTs and the blockchain came into, you incorporated that idea. And when it didn't work, it easily peeled out. You know what I mean? I mean, I know it wasn't easy.
Well, you're right. Term. The subscriber hierarchy that you and I sort of built about, you have social at the bottom, and you have, email and print and membership at the top. I had, we put tokenization in there, which I have now taken out, and maybe someday Web3 tokenization will go back in. But right now I don't feel confident enough in the infrastructure to do that.
That's right.
Or in the creators themselves to be.
You incorporate. So Matt, that being my point, is that you incorporated the new thing into your evolution, rather than making the trend the evolution. You know what I mean?
So you're saying, like, so the general consultant that you and I have seen that was just doing marketing consulting, all of a sudden they are AI consultants.
Exactly. And that's all they do, right? They go out and they say, basically, we help you deploy AI, right?
Yeah.
And they sort of, they just sort of I don't know if they forget, but they basically just sort of lose all. And it's very tempting to want to do that, because you see how big and open the opportunity is. You see this opportunity staring you in the face, and it's very hard. I get it. It's very hard to not want to go, push all your chips in to that bright and shiny thing. And it's a lesson, I guess, is my point here, is that I have, from my observation and from my own personal experience, I have found that sustained success comes from incorporating those bright and shiny things into whatever you're already doing, and changing you and changing, what you're doing, rather than sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and sort of saying, okay, this bright night, this is the new thing, right?
Yeah.
Put all your money into that, right? Because that's what that's the next new thing.
It's a good point. But it is.
And I'm not saying you can't be successful if you throw all your money into the new thing, because there are plenty of people who threw all their money into crypto in the very early days and are doing very well. Thank you very much. But that, that to me is not the way that's gambling to me.
Well, so is stock market, by the way.
That's right. It's the same thing.
We're
Yeah,
trying
same,
to, we do whatever we can to keep up with inflation, because the governments around the world keep printing money and they're basically stealing from individuals. But that's a whole other episode.
That's right.
That's a whole other thing. All right. Well, that's that was just one.
We each did one there. We each did one.
We probably should. Do you want to pay some bills?
Yeah,
now,
let's pay the bills.
Speaking of over on that one, let's do that.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write 1 million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Let me evangelize about a podcast for a second. That's right, The Sales Evangelist, hosted by Donald Kelly and brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. Every week, Donald interviews the world's best sales experts, successful sellers, sales leaders, entrepreneurs in sales, sales people, who share their strategies to succeed in, well, yeah, that's right, like the name implies, sales. Folks like Jeffrey Gitomer, Jill Conrad, Bob Berg, and Guy Kawasaki, just to name a few. They share actionable insights and stories that will encourage, challenge, and motivate you to hustle your way to top income status. If you're someone looking to take off in your sales career and earn the income you deserve, this is the podcast for you. Find Sales Evangelist wherever you follow your favorite podcasts.
One of my favorite memories of the show of all time happened in the last episode, where my computer was a little bit laggy and I hit end recording, but it didn't quite end. So the last 2 seconds of This Old Marketing, if you watch the video on YouTube, is just you staring at the screen. And your look is like, I can't believe I have to do this every week with him.
Oh, man.
You're like, I could be doing so many more interesting things than talking to.
It's not
What's
true.
your podcast?
It's not
podcast
true.
Jesus and Little Orange Man. Don't know what we're doing anymore. Well, I went first. You should probably go first now.
Okay.
We'll go back the other way just to mix things up a little bit.
Fine. Okay. So here's the other thing that I'm going to move one of mine up. Since this is, I'm going to move that third one up, which is probably the biggest lesson I learned this year. Cause it was a cruddy year. Like, as I've said many times on this show, I will not.
Do you want to explain? You've said that a couple times. I don't know if our listeners, do you want to give some context to why? You don't have to share, but our listeners, you said that, but did they know? I
don't know if they know or not.
Do you want to talk about it?
Sure.
No? I will talk about it. Why don't you talk about, hey, you know what? This is our show.
Right.
We can do whatever we want. And you are podcast Jesus. So go ahead.
Yeah.
You have the floor.
Oh man, don't push this too far, because somebody will make memes. Okay.
Okay. Hey, somebody make memes.
Please don't make a meme. Please don't make a meme.
Go ahead.
So I'll put it in the context of my lesson learned, which is, so the way I wrote this for the note to remember it was, I said, you don't know when you'll realize failure, but you'll know it when you do. And what I mean by that is that it's really hard just before you hit the point where you realize failure to realize that you're going to fail. or that you're failing, as the gerund probably is a better way to put it. But you'll know it when it happens. And the thing is, the immediate thing, at least this is for me, maybe this isn't for everybody. The thing is, you want to punish yourself. You want to find what it was that you did wrong. And I've quoted this Star Trek quote so many times, that is probably silly at this point. But there's the famous Captain Picard where he says you can do everything right and still not succeed. And this last year and a half, I would say, to all of 24 and about half of 23, for me, and I know a lot of people that are in my business, was just a cruddy business year. And there are a lot we can regale the reasons for that. We can talk about the reasons for all those things. Mine were compounded by some just like not good decisions that I made, about various things with the business, and ended up sort of snowballing it to the point where you just got to the point this summer where it wasn't really, it was just clear that it just wasn't working anymore. And, and I contemplated things like getting a job. I contemplated, sort of just giving up on the whole entrepreneur thing. And you and I talked about stuff, and, it was difficult and struggly and, very frustrating this year, especially in the summertime, July, August, early part of September. And it was also, so my lesson learned is to forgive yourself, and to forgive yourself. The faster you forgive yourself, and it's hard. It's one of the hardest things that you'll do, that I've discovered that you'll do, is forgiving yourself for the mistakes or for the decisions that you made that put you in the situation that you're in. Like when you feel that palpable sense of sort of frustration, and that you're trying to climb up a hill and then it's really bad, you've got to forgive yourself, and you've got to forgive yourself quickly, because you've got to get back up. You've got to get back up and start doing things again. And you can't do things in that mental state where you're not forgiving yourself, because you'll just exacerbate everything for where you are. And so, as it turns out, for me, it was a big pivot this year. Like, I changed everything. I teased it on the show. I've teased it at Content Marketing World. I'm basically shutting down my business of content advisory, just like literally shutting it down. And the nature of the work that I do has just flipped on its head. I mean, in 2019, I went back and did the math. 90% of my business, consulting business, and just business generally, sort of made up of consulting, speaking, training. Basically, those are the three things that really make up the revenue of what I do. Those three things, 90% of that business was with Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, right? Big global. I was traveling around the world. I was working with big brands, doing all the things that consultants do. And so this year, I think 1% of my business came from a big brand, like a big named brand. Everything else is from either startup companies or mid-sized companies, where I'm doing the, sort of more of a, sort of fractional marketing leader thing, coaching, working with companies, working with executives, rolling up my sleeves. I'm writing copy. I'm doing marketing things. I'm part of teams. I'm actually doing the marketing. And, the two things have come out of that. One is that the business is now fully pivoted, and I walk into 2025 feeling really good about the year, and feeling really good about myself and where things are. So yay, launching the new business, seventhbear.com. Many of you have already come to and signed up for an email there, and thank you for that. And it's been a real joy to launch something new, not just from a company perspective, but from an energetic perspective. Just sort of the energy of everything, right? New company name, new logo, new attitude, new me, new energy, new creative, new tone, new everything. Which is hard in and of itself. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a work in progress. But so much more fun, interesting, and reminding me that getting over that feeling of failure and moving back into the energy of flow and gratitude and happiness and joy is just so much better of a place to start to try and work from. So that's my lesson learned, and I don't know how much of an announcement that is, but there you go. I'm coming into 25 with a new thing, a new attitude, a new business, and a new focus on everything that I'm doing.
So, first of all, congratulations. You know that I've been at
Yes.
that spot a couple times in my career. It is a very difficult place to be, and as Barry Manilow would say, you made it through the rain.
Yeah. Right.
Congratulations for that. I don't even know this. What's the significance of Seventh Bear?
So Seventh Bear comes from there are three things to it. The first and probably most important is that the domain was available.
Ding.
I have tease about that. So here's the thing. So seven is so the whole point of the business is to be a bit of counter programming to the current focus on speed and technology in marketing. I want to bring the human back to marketing. And so the focus of the organization is to bring creativity, collaboration, and curiosity back to marketing teams, where they're not spending their time pushing buttons, but rather spending their time figuring out how to make great stuff that resonates and it creates success for the business. Basically, reboot marketing around the human instead of the machine. So that's the focus of the business in a very big nutshell. But basically, the idea is that seven is in numerology is the number. It's also my favorite number, but in numerology it's the number for wisdom. And so I think wisdom is truly the attribute that we need right now. And so knowledge is commodity, but wisdom is a rarity, and wisdom is the thing we need to be putting into our kids, putting into our teams, putting into our businesses. So it represents the idea of wisdom. And then bear, it comes from the constellation, and you can see it in the logo. It's the Big Dipper. Basically, it's the bear constellation, which is the only constellation that never sets in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's the one that the sailors always use for guidance because it points to the North Star. So there's the bear constellation that points to the North Star and never sets. So it's unending or never setting wisdom and guidance.
That is deep.
That's the idea. Yeah. And it's fun, and I promise it doesn't take itself too seriously. The whole point of this was to get out of sort of, content advisory was built around the idea of, it was meant to have gravitas to it, like, to appeal to the Fortune 100 company who wanted to hire a consulting firm to figure out their content strategy. And, it felt very business-like and IBM-like. And it was never my tone, right? My tone is more snarky. It's fun. It's jokey. It's full of joy and full of positivity. And so I wanted something that was more creative and more fun and could allow me to be me, let Bartlett be Bartlett kind of thing. And that was my goal with the whole thing. And it's still me and Kathy. Kathy and I are still working together, and we're doing our thing, and still a lot of the same kinds of services, just with a different attitude.
All right. Well, there you go. And you have a newsletter that people can sign up for.
There's a newsletter. Yeah. seventhbear.com. You just go and sign up for the newsletter. It's my little Substack. And kicking up people who listen to this will see it, but the LinkedIn will change. The press release, quote unquote, will go out, 1st of January, basically very, very first of the year. So listeners to this show have a little bit of a scoop.
Will you start to wear a bear hat? Like with
all the bear metaphors are coming. Trust me, all the bear metaphors have. Yeah, the bear metaphors are.
I want the hat with the big, the big bear on top that covers the ears, and you tie it under the chin. That's the one that I want to see. So that is expected.
Yeah, exactly.
I have lots of other lessons, but I think I'm going to cut them down to 2 more.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you one, and then I'll do mine, and then you can do your final one.
Yeah.
And I think that my lesson learned is not just for me, but it's with a lot of the content entrepreneurs and content creators and marketers that I've been able and fortunate to work with over the past year, is it seems like the continuous problem that people have is a lack of focus. One of my favorite stories of all time is when Bill Gates and Warren Buffett met for the first time, and the editor of the Washington Post got them together for the first time, and they said, she said to both of them, "Would you write down on this piece of paper the most important word that has driven your success?" And they both wrote down the same word, and that word was focus. And the more I meet with creators and marketers and entrepreneurs, they're just doing too many things. They're being mediocre at everything.
That's marketing writ large, by the way. That's brand's problem, right? That's what the whole problem of Seventh Bear is trying to solve. Is exactly that.
That's exactly so. And it's so obvious. Like when I talk to people about it, and you're coming up with the same thing, it's so obvious to people when you say. And I'm like. So this happened a lot recently when I was in Italy. So I was speaking in Italy, and I had a lot of time there. I was there the entire day, and I had a lot of marketers coming up with me. With basically, I was doing marketing confession, and so I'm like, oh, tell me your problem. Okay, here's the problem. I'm doing this, and I'm like, well, what are you doing? And they'll say, we just launched the podcast, and we've got the newsletter that's going on, and we launched this web series on social, and we did this, and I counted them. I say, okay, so you're doing 7 or 8 like creative things, like you're creating lots of content. And I said, well, tell me what social channels you're on. We're on Twitter X, and then we're trying the Blue Sky thing, and we're doing all the things, right? And it's an easy problem to fix. It's just very difficult to do. And I'm like, how can you be amazing? How can you create the most incredible customer experiences digitally when you're going every direction?
That's right.
There's no way you can do that. And of course, it's a great reminder for you. It's a great reminder for me that we get to do this because it's often the problem. You're just doing too many things. So my lesson learned continuously, and I've said it forever, but it just seems like with everything going on today, and we just seem to be all over the place, and social media and how important that is or not important, is if you've got problems and you don't feel like you're as creative as you need to be, or you're not building an audience, or whatever the case is, or you're not driving the right revenue, even, you might just be a little bit too all over the place. So now is a great time to do an audit of all the things that you're doing and decide into 2025, what's the stuff you're not going to do? Because that, folks, is strategy. And strategy is all about saying no to as many things as you possibly can, so that you could say a big, emphatic yes to 1 or 2 things and be amazing for your customers. So there you go.
I love that. I mean, what I've been saying of late, and I found myself saying it on a Marketing Profs webinar the other day, where I was talking a little bit about exactly what you're talking about, this idea of focus and coming back to, really the foundations of what we're trying to do in marketing. And what I said was, we've spent the last 20 years sort of trying to live by the Mark Zuckerberg move fast and break things. And we wonder why we spend our entire day walking around trying to fix things that are broken.
That's right. And it's funny with the lesson that you talked about with like jumping into AI and jumping into Web3. There is something to say about being observant and moving a little bit slower. A really good example of that actually is Walmart's e-commerce strategy. Remember, Walmart was so criticized for not jumping in and competing so quickly with Amazon.
That's
now,
right.
Say what you want about it. I mean, Amazon, they did fine, right? But Walmart's doing amazingly well too. And I think in a lot of cases, they said, we're going to go when it makes sense and we feel like we can do a really good job for our customers. And they waited a few years, and now they're just kicking butt, taking names, and they're destroying Target. Which
That's
is
right.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. So I have one more. Do you want me to go with my one more? And then
I'll tell you. I want to go really quickly because mine is really fast.
And then I'll do mine,
and then you can do your last one for sure. So the lesson learned, and it sort of feeds off of the one that I just mentioned around failure and forgiving yourself very quickly, which is and this is a lesson that I have learned and relearned and learned and relearned and relearned and relearned, and which is the most important thing in your life are the relationships that you have. And it's probably the number one sort of most important thing to remember and to learn every year is the most important things are the relationships that you have to the expense of everything else.
Yeah.
So I'm super lucky to have you, your lovely wife, our friends, the people that, my wife, our friends, the relationships that I have sort of come to lean on this year, for everything from advice to help to, just being there and listening to, of course, the joy and love and all the things that you spend, but to money, business success, career success, all of that just pales in comparison to the relationships that you maintain in your life. So keep those up, even when you're feeling like you're backed into a corner, or when you're not backed into a corner, and you're feeling like you're all alone out there. Trust me, when you're, if you're out there trying to find a job or you're trying to find the next gig or whatever, like, the cavalry isn't coming, but the relationships in your, you are on your own in many ways, but the relationships that you have, fostering those and continuing to give your all to those things is paramount.
Boy, you can't, that's the most important thing in this whole episode.
Yeah.
Is what you just said. And I think about, and you've probably seen them, but whether it's on Facebook or you're on TikTok where you see like if somebody's on their deathbed, they're not wishing for more money or success.
Yeah. They're not wishing,
they're wishing
they hustled
to
harder.
Spend more time with the people they love and that
right.
love them. And that's all we can hope for. So before you get to that state, now it's the time. Today is the day. We're getting into resolutions for 25. Good resolution is spend more time with the people you love and that love you, and everything will be okay. My last one here is an actual marketing lesson learned. I don't know which examples to share on this one, Robert, but this is really what I think we've seen a huge transformation over the past couple of years. And I think a lot of marketers that we've worked with have paid the price on some of these things. And it's putting so much money and resources into influencers and not enough money and resources into building their own creators.
Yeah.
I think that we have seen that move.
Yeah.
I think that, and I mean, if you want to use like the Bud Light example, I think that's a really relevant example where Bud Light puts, you don't even have to talk about any of the political issues that surround that or your belief issues, but Bud Light put a lot of resources into an influencer, and there was a backlash there. I think if Bud Light puts those same resources into the same exact kind of person that worked for them, that was a Bud Light employee, a Bud Light creator, whatever, their own, it's a different story. Because if you if you're just paying for time with an influencer, that's fleeting. That is not going to last. If you pay to build somebody up and help them create and help them to be expressive and help them to build an audience, that is meaningful. It's meaningful to the audience and it's meaningful to the media around that audience. And I think that's where we're going to move forward with. You have a lot of brands. This is B2B, B2C, nonprofit. Instead of thinking, who can share our message out there that don't have any affiliation with us? Let's say, how about let's help our employees build an audience. Let's help our stakeholders build an audience. Yep. Let's invest in them. And let's not be scared that they might go off on their own. I hear that all the time. Oh, well, what if I invest in my employee and they build up an audience and then want to leave?
Right.
You know what? Happens in pro sports all the time.
Right.
But you want your audience, you want your customers to buy the t-shirt or the kit or the jersey of your employee, right? That's what you want.
That's right.
You want that human connection. So that's what we're really moving into. So the lesson is, I think we're moving away from influencer, we're moving away from calling in the newsletter after the content brand or coming from the content brand or coming from the company to coming from an individual who is an employee or significantly tied to that company in some way And I think that's going to be the case for the next many, many years.
I'm totally stealing that idea. I love that so much. I love that. And I'm totally stealing it because the line is, you know, the biggest mistake is that we invest in influencers instead of our own influence. Right. And
so good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's by the way, it's a really easy audit to do.
Yeah.
When you're auditing somebody's content, you're like, oh, well, your newsletter comes from your company.
That's right.
Your podcast is from your company. I mean, who's the person? People want to connect with other individuals. So who's give that person a little bit more power and influence themselves to be great. And to
it reminds me so much.
Be surprised. A lot of people in your company want to do this.
Yeah.
You don't have to force people to do it that don't want to do it.
Well, that's
a lot of them really want to do it.
Exactly it. I mean, it reminds me so much of that old. There's that old saying. I think it was a cartoon where, you know, it's like, you know, and I'll sort of paraphrase it and put it into the influencer thing. It's like, you know, what if we invest all this money into our employees as influencers and they leave? And the answer is, well, what if we don't and they stay? You know what I mean?
That's a great answer.
You know,
that's the best answer.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, good. That was fun.
That was fun. Yeah, that was totally fun. That was absolutely fun.
That was good because I don't think we've really done an episode like that before. So that was a new experience.
All good at the end of the year.
Good. And then I'm looking forward to our next incredible episode, which is generally our most popular episode.
It will definitely be less.
People want to hear us be
wrong. Put it
that way. So, all right, good. I'll leave it to you two.
All right. Hey, yes, next week will be much less heartfelt. It'll be more fun. I don't know. Maybe this was fun. This was fun. Hopefully you had fun. Hopefully you were entertained, and I hope you all have a lovely, wonderful Christmas. And we will see you next week when we see you for our prediction show. And just remember, until we see you next week, of course, it is your story to tell. Tell it well, and we'll see you next week on This Old Marketing. Hey, thanks a lot for making it this far in this week's episode, and thank you all for being a part of This Old Marketing. You can check out all the show notes of what we talked about today at thisoldmarketing.com, and it's also where you can leave us a review or a voicemail. We need those reviews and comments on whichever platform you follow us on. And if you haven't followed the podcast, please go do that and make sure you catch the latest and greatest episodes every Friday morning. We're on Apple and Spotify and all your other favorite podcatchers, of course, but we'd love it if you went over and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's right, YouTube. youtube.com/@thisoldmarketing. We'll see you again next week, folks, with another episode of This Old Marketing.